on the mountain, over the hill, and everywhere I go.
Today we pay tribute to James Baldwin, playwright, essayist, and novelist. 2015 Monroe County Correctional Facility.
James Baldwin by Angelo Wesley. I fought for mine, demanded to be heard, voice by voice, word by word. I fought for mine in the streets of Harlem to Washington, D.C. until my voice was heard in every picket line. I fought for mine. I wrote novels, I wrote poems, I wrote plays, I wrote essays. Nobody knows my name. I fought for mine. We quarreled over integration, over schools, over water fountains. Go tell it to the mountain. I fought for mine, so heed these words, the fire next time. I fought for mine, going to meet the man, sweet victory is mine. Quote, this man traveled the earth like its history and its biographer. He reported, criticized, made beautiful, analyzed, cajoled, lyricized, attacked, sang, made us think, made us better, made us consciously human. He made us feel that we could defend ourselves or define ourselves, that we were in the world not merely as animate slaves, but as terrifyingly sensitive measures of what is good or evil, beautiful or ugly. This is the power of his spirit. This is the bond which created our love for him. A Mary Baraka funeral eulogy for James Baldwin, delivered at St. John the Divine, New York City, December 8th, 1987.
Who is James Baldwin? By Victor Cobb. Who is James Baldwin? A writer, an activist, a teacher, a political leader, a poet, a playwright, or a gay man? Who was James Baldwin? He was a black man born on August 2nd, 1924. He died December 1st, 1987. He was 63. He will be 91 this year. James Baldwin was all of the above. He was a hero, along with many others who paved the way for blacks such as myself to be equal and to be treated justly in the society we live in today. Quote, one writes out of one thing only, one's own experience. Everything depends on how relentlessly one forces from this experience the last drop, sweet or bitter, it can possibly give. This is the only real concern of the artists who recreate out of the disorder of life that order which is art, unquote. James Baldwin, Notes of a Native Son, Harper Magazine, 1955. Who was James Baldwin? Who is James Baldwin? One of my favorite passages written by Baldwin is from Words of a Native Son, which was published in 1964. Quote, I know when I walk into a Harlem funeral parlor and see a dead body lying there, I know no matter what the social scientists say or the liberals say, that it is extremely unlikely that he would be in the grave so soon if he were not born black. This is a terrible thing to say, but if it is so, then the people who are responsible for this are in a terrible condition. Please take note, I am not interested in anybody's guilt. Guilt is a luxury that we can no longer afford. I know you didn't do it, and I didn't do it either. But I am responsible for it because I am a man and a citizen of this country, and you are responsible for it too, for the very same reason. As long as my children face the future that they face and come to the ruin that they come to, your children are very greatly in danger too, unquote. James Baldwin, Word of a Native Son, Playboy Magazine, December 1964. This is so powerful to me because it expresses forgiveness in a time of grief. Maybe we would love for those who have caused so much hurt and suffering to bleed with guilt. I believe, like James Baldwin, we must move forward and forgive. Although my history has created me, it will not define me. Forgiveness does not change the past, but it does change the future. I am Emmett Till. I am Trayvon Martin. I am James Baldwin. I am a native son.
James Baldwin, A. Hardaway.
The world is before you, and you need not take it or leave it as it were when you came in it. James Baldwin, Nobody Knows My Name, 1961. Being introduced to the life and writings of Baldwin, Harlem native born August 2nd, 1924, intrigued me and consumed my understanding of why. Why haven't I heard about James Baldwin? I became even more interested in his life and his writings. Who is James Baldwin? In 1957, in Montgomery, Alabama, when the Civil Rights Movement, headed up by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was happening, James Baldwin was there. Quote, I could not suppress the thought that this earth had acquired its color from the blood that had dripped down from these trees, unquote. James Baldwin, A Letter from the South, 1959. James Baldwin met and advised Dr. King. What about James Baldwin? I didn't know anything about this. Quote, I was, in short, but one generation removed from the South, which was now undergoing a new convulsion over whether black children had the same rights or capacities for education as did children of white people, unquote. James Baldwin, A Letter from the South, 1959. On May 25th, 1963, James Baldwin led a group of people, of friends and family, including Lena Horne, Lauren Hansberry, Harry Belafonte, Rip Thorne, his brother David, and a freedom rider, Jerome Smith, to a meeting with Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy in New York City at the Kennedy's family residence. Quote, I must now, for various reasons, for some of which I hope will presently become apparent, do something which I have very deliberately never done before. Sketch the famous Bobby Kennedy meeting. I have talked about it or around it, and the day is coming when I will be compelled to deliver the entire testimony. I want merely to suggest something of Lorraine Hansberry's beauty and the power of that day, of what and comprehension that day's encounter was to cause the nation, and presently, until this hour, the world. James Baldwin, Lorraine Hansberry, The Summit, 2001. Lorraine Hansberry was 29, James Baldwin was 39, Robert Kennedy was 38. Quote, I doubt that poverty can be imagined and the attitudes of the American middle class, or the middle class everywhere, and proof that the memory obliterates poverty with great speed and efficiency, unquote. James Baldwin, Lorraine Hansberry at the Summit, 2004. No agreement was reached. Language did not seem to be there for the parties to communicate. Is it there now? I say that again, is it there now? James Baldwin was dedicated to revising the vacuums of the basic terms of these American conversations. Quote, language is the most vivid and critical key to identify. It reveals the private identity and connects with one or divorces one from the larger public or communal identity, unquote. James Baldwin, if black English isn't a language, then tell me what is. New York Times, 1979. James Baldwin was a writer who was part of a very complicated time, along with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and all of the others who pushed for civil rights. He should not be forgotten. James Baldwin should not be forgotten. He did not take this world as it was when he came in it.
The Man in the Mist, Isom Jenkins. Quote, for I am, or I was, one of those people who pride themselves on their willpower, on their ability to make decisions and carry it through. This virtue, like most virtues, and ambiguity itself. People who believe that they are strong-willed and the masters of their destiny can only continue to believe this by becoming specialists of their self-deception. Their decisions are not really decisions at all. A real decision makes one humble. One knows that it is at mercy of more things than can be named. but the elaborate system of evasion, of illusion, designed to make themselves and the world appear to be what they and the world are not. This is certainly my decision. Made so long ago in Joey's bed, came to. I had decided to allow no room in the universe for something which ashamed and frightened me. I succeeded very well, by not looking at the universe, by not looking at myself, by remaining in effect in constant motion. James Baldwin, Giovanni's Room, 1956. The reason I am saying the man in the mist is that I think James Baldwin should be given the notice now, given the new depth in this generation for his writing on his sexuality. To me, he was kept behind the scenes and has not received the glory for his writing and his participation in the civil rights movement. James Baldwin gave us a clear picture about what was going on at the time and predicted things to come. Quote, "Why the tale of how we suffer and how we are delighted and how we may triumph is never new. It always must be heard. There isn't any other to tell. It's the only light we've got in all this darkness. And this tale, according to that fact, that body, those strong hands on those strings, has another aspect in every country and a new depth in every generation." Unquote. James Baldwin, Sunny Blues, Partisan Review, 1957. He broke ground on his sexuality in Giovanni's Room and in so many areas, not just on black's blackness, but white's whiteness. Quote, "The purpose of education finally is to create a person the ability to look at the world for himself, to make his own decisions, to say to himself, this is black or this is white, to decide for himself whether there is a God in heaven or not. The task to ask this question of the universe and then to learn to live with those questions is the way to achieve his own identity. But no society is really anxious to have that kind of person around. What society really, ideally, want is citizenry which will simply obey the rules of society. If the society needs in this, that society is about to perish." Unquote. James Baldwin, A Talk to Teachers, The Saturday Review, 1963. James Baldwin looked at the world for himself, and he wrote,
James Baldwin, an American icon, A. Benitez. Quote, "Negroes in this country, and Negroes do not strictly or legally speaking exist in any other, are taught really to despise themselves from the moment their eyes open in this world. This is white, and they are black. White people hold the power, which means they are superior to blacks. Intrinsically, that is. God decreed it so. The world has innumerable ways of making this difference known and felt and feared. Long before Negro children perceived this difference, and even longer before he understood it, he began to react to it as he began to be controlled by it. Every effort made by the child's elders to prepare him for a fate which they could not protect his cause, seen him secretly in terror to begin to await without knowing that he is doing so. His mysterious and inexorable punishment, he must be good, not only in order to please his parents and the others to avoid being punished by them. Behind their authority stands another nameless and impersonal infinity, harder to please and bottomlessly cruel. As this filters into the child's consciousness through his parents' tone of voice and being exhorted, punished, or loved in sudden uncontrolled note of fear heard of his mother's and Father's voice when he strayed beyond some particular boundary. He does not know what the boundary is. He cannot get any explanation of it, which is frightening enough, but the fear he hears is the voices of his elders, and the more frightening still, the fear that I hear in my father's voice, for example, when he realized that I believe I could do anything a white boy could do. And he had the intent, and I had the intentions of proving it, and was not like the fear I heard when one of us all had fallen down the stairs or strayed too far from the house. It was another fear, a fear that a child is challenged by the white world's assumption and was putting himself in the path of destruction, unquote. James Baldwin, a letter from region in my mind, The New Yorker, 1962. A letter from a region in my mind became the fire next time. Born from the dark into the Great Depression, burrowed in Harlem, poverty in every direction. Beaten by police at a very young age, he sought his revenge with pencil and pen. He wrote what he lived, the revelations of truth, the lyrics to the hymn, deeper than the blues. He wrote, he essayed, he noveled, he playwrote for stage, brutally honest, intelligent and brave. Historical debates, compassionate and irate, like arrows of Cupid, intentional and straight. He slew the likes of William F. Buckley and all who entered the ring. His clairvoyance unseen by the world, the Kennedys, the Malcolms, a man named King. What he spoke of then, we spoke of now. Stand up, be heard. Stand up and be proud. Simply a beautiful man, the very best of the best. Incognito, his preference of gender. Personal and melancholy, quietly remembered. James Baldwin, novelist, essayist, poet, and playwright, an American icon.
My name is Isom Jenkins, and I've had the privilege of being able to write about James Baldwin, someone whom I never knew, with my fellow inmates here at Monroe County Correctional Facility. One thing that dawns on me today when we speak of James Baldwin is the things he went through, in his time, dealing with a lot of things: sexuality, racism, segregation, desegregation in schools, so forth and so on. One thing I've looked at very hard and in depth is that the fact that we look at our history as black people here, and we've seen killings, we've seen a lot of things, and we look back at their time, we've seen children going to jail, mothers and fathers going to jail to fight for what they believed in, equal rights. Now we look at here in 2015, we see the same things which had happened in Charleston, South Carolina, my mother's hometown, churches being bombed. And we go back even then into the past, we see the same thing. And the question is, what have we learned?